Hello, it's Teresa, and today I'll be covering oxytocin and its importance in breastfeeding. So oxytocin is an amazing hormone. It's produced in the brain in the posterior pituitary gland, and it's got its two main functions on organs are it helps the uterus to contract, so hugely important during labour and also postnatally, and also oxytocin targets the breast, and it causes all the small muscles in the breast to contract around the milk producing cells, and so it causes all the milk that's produced to be pushed down along the ducts to the nipple, and that's known as the letdown. So some of you may notice that after you have the baby and whenever you breastfeed in the first few days, you feel your uterus contracting, and that's because the oxytocin that you stimulate through feeding causes both the breast and the uterus to contract. So you're really helping your uterus to get back to its pre-pregnancy state whenever you breastfeed, and overall you actually lose less blood because you're helping your uterus to contract. So apart from helping those two organs to function and to contract, oxytocin more recently has been found to be a chemical messenger. So it works in the brain and it's shown to affect social behaviour and affects us feeling calm, tense, relaxed and anxious. So I often explain, if you imagine a seesaw, at one end of the seesaw you have your cortisol, your stress hormone, and at the other end you have oxytocin, and they're in balance. So if you're very highly stressed, if you're worried, whether it's new motherhood, whether you're in pain from labour, whether you're in pain from breastfeeding, whether you're very anxious about baby, your stress levels will be higher, and as a consequence your oxytocin will be lower. Strategies to increase oxytocin. So ways that you can increase oxytocin. So you want from the seesaw to increase the oxytocin so that the oxytocin increases, so that helps you to feel more calm, more positive, more confident and less stressed. So cuddling your baby. Touch is very powerful, so whether you cuddle your partner, anybody else or your baby, touch will really increase your oxytocin. Smell as well, smelling your baby, the sense of smell, seeing your baby, visualising your baby or your baby's eyes and ears when they're feeding. So making a real effort to focus on your baby whilst you're feeding will really help your oxytocin to increase. Other ways is if you place something warm on your breast, so a flannel, that will help the letdown as well. I often say with regard to smell, if you save a baby growth from the day before, and then while you're feeding baby, if you smell that, anything to help you wrap yourself in baby scents and smell will really help your oxytocin levels. So the importance of oxytocin. Oxytocin is so important because it helps your letdown. So as you start to cuddle your baby and as you put your baby to the breast, within 20 to 30 seconds a message will be sent to your brain to release oxytocin, and the oxytocin will be released in the blood and it'll come down to both breasts, and then your breasts will, with the oxytocin, all the muscles in the breast will shorten and thicken, i.e. they will contract, and that will be your first letdown. So your first letdown happens within 20 to 30 seconds. How do you know you're having a letdown? Well, you might feel your second breast leak. You should notice your baby changing their sucking technique. So when your baby first goes to the breast, they start fast sucking movements and they're stimulating your letdown, and those messages go to your brain, and as your brain releases the oxytocin, your breast will contract and your baby will start gulping. They'll change their short sucking pattern from fast to slow, suck, swallow, or gulp, gulp. So you know your baby is getting your letdown of milk. Mums have between 3 and 8 letdowns per feed. So you have your first letdown, the breast is contracting, and that will last about 1.5 to 2 minutes. Then your breasts will relax. Your baby needs to carry on sucking before they stimulate your second letdown. And consequent letdowns will then occur. Your first letdown, if all's well, if you're feeding positive, you're enjoying your feeding, if you're not having any pain at all, you should get about 1 ounce of milk from your first letdown. Second letdown, a little bit less. Third letdown, a little bit less than that. And so that works really well. Unfortunately, if you're feeling tense and anxious and you have less oxytocin and more stress, your first letdown, instead of being a strong contraction, will be a slightly weaker contraction, and so your baby may get quite a bit less milk, might get 15-20 mils of milk with the first letdown, and then less and less. So hopefully that explains why if when a baby feeds, they can feed for say 30 minutes. If you're feeling positive, enjoying your feed, you're having strong letdowns, your baby can have twice as much milk compared to if you're struggling, if you're feeling anxious, if you're in pain, your baby will get less milk during that feed. So how does oxytocin help your baby? Well, when your baby is in its favourite place, on your chest, being cuddled or during a feed, your baby will feel safe and secure. If your baby feels safe and secure, your baby will release its own oxytocin. The oxytocin will wash over your baby's brain and it'll help your baby's brain to develop. So it'll help your baby to grow. We know that babies with lots of snuggles, cuddles, they grow well. Part of the brain develops where communication develops, so your baby will become better at communicating. Parts of the brain will also be washed over with oxytocin that deal with IQ, so the IQ part of the brain will develop. So your baby will thrive physically and emotionally. The more cuddles they